Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Suburban Driving with Miranda. Don't have my cameraman this week, so it's going to be a selfie video. But this week I have the Jeep Wrangler Sahara Eco Diesel. Yep, that's a diesel you hear chugging in the background. Let me tell you, this engine makes all the difference. Let's go for a drive. So, as you can probably hear already, I am in the diesel version of the Jeep Wrangler. So, if you'll remember from a couple of weeks ago, and that's beeping at me to tell me that I need more fuel. Only the second time I'd filled it up, and I have had this vehicle for 3 weeks. Let me finish my other thought. If you remember from a couple of weeks ago when I had the Gladiator version of the Wrangler, I felt like the engine was severely underpowered for it. So the fact that this has a diesel engine makes a huge difference and is like, it completely changes the experience in this vehicle. Back to what I was saying before. I've had this car for 3 weeks now. Christmas, and then we had a bit of a longer lockdown here in Quebec because of everything going on in the world. So SCA just said, keep the car, we'll let you know when things go back to normal. I mean, they haven't really yet, but you know what I mean. So I'm only returning it this week. So after living with this vehicle for 3 whole weeks, and truthfully I only had a vehicle kind of in the middle of it. I had the X5M, which I know you're all going to watch. And I didn't drive the M as much as I drove the Wrangler, and only because the Wrangler is so good on fuel. And it makes such a difference to have this 3-liter V6 turbocharged engine. So you've got about the same amount of horsepower, I think a little bit more. So I've got 260 horsepower and I have 442 pound-foot of torque. Now that's what makes the difference. So it still has an 8-speed transmission, but that torque makes this Wrangler actually have some life. So in the Gladiator, where I would, hit the throttle and want to accelerate and kind of go like at a turtle's pace, but all this noise and stuff would happen, but the car wouldn't go anywhere. The difference with this is that, yeah, okay, I'm making a lot of noise because it's diesel, and truthfully it sounds like a tractor, and as if the Wrangler wasn't loud enough as it is, but they've thrown a diesel in here, so kind of ups the interior noise level. But if you can ignore that loudness to life, what you have here is the perfect combination for the Wrangler. If you're gonna get this car, if you really want a Jeep, you really want a Wrangler, you need to get the Eco Diesel version, because not only is it really good on gas, I'm averaging 10.1 liters per 100 kilometers, which I think is what FCA or Jeep even says that this is supposed to do. And I've done a huge combination of everything. So from highway to little jaunts within my suburban neighborhood, driven out to the country. We did our Christmas present drops, basically like threw them at people's doors and waved from the Wrangler, like, because that's all we were allowed to do this year. So the Wrangler became our Christmas delivery vehicle. And so the 3 of us piled in here with all the presents, and we did our like 3-4 hour tour of all the family members. And the worst part about that tour was the loudness of it. I mean, you get to a certain point where on the highway, and the fact that you have to raise your voice an octave in order to talk to the people in the car with you, it gets a little bit tiresome. And like the constant wind buffeting, and you get to turn on the radio when you hear something, or the kid asks somebody from the back, and you're like, what, I can't hear you because of all the wind. So that becomes the most obnoxious thing about this vehicle. But other than that, I absolutely loved living with this thing for 3 weeks. And, like I said, I had the BMW X5M parked beside it for a week. And I actually had to think about which one I wanted to take certain days. I mean, if I knew I was going to be on the highway, I would opt for the X5M, only because it was a quieter ride. So truthfully, we took the Wrangler quite a few times snowboarding, because we're allowed to be doing that right now. Outdoor activities are prohibited. So we took the Wrangler snowboarding, and I also took the X5M snowboarding. Now, while the M was practical, it's an SUV, it's big, I actually really preferred the Wrangler for the experience at the hill. The way the trunk opens, and it just, I don't know, it fit the situation better. And again, the hill's not that far from our place. Thankfully, we're very lucky to live close to a mountain. I'll call it a mountain, it's a hill. But we're very lucky to live close enough, but it's still a 20-25 minute drive, and it's on the highway. And when I had the choice of either, saving a bit of fuel by taking my diesel Wrangler or taking my V8 powered BMW X5M that needed 93 plus octane, I opted for my diesel Wrangler, and with good reason. Like, honestly, this thing is super fun to drive. Yeah, okay, it's loud, but it's really a lot of fun and so practical. And I think the diesel, and I haven't done it, so I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty sure that the diesel would aid in its off-road capabilities as well. Again, I'm not 100% because I have not taken this off-road, nor have I done off-roading in the Gladiator, but I'm pretty sure the diesel would help it out. And from what I've read from other journalists, that they were super impressed with the Gladiator Eco Diesel performance off-road. Diesel makes sense, especially in this car. And I have been so happy driving this Wrangler. I have to say, I am quite sad to give it back. Having it for the 3 weeks that I did and living with it and kind of treating it as my own, obviously respectfully, as it's not mine, it felt right. And it felt like, for all the years that I said, oh yeah, no, I could live with a Wrangler, and all of you saying, oh, you only have it for a week and you return it on a Monday and you haven't really experienced it or lived with it. Well, I did. I've had it for a month. So I feel like I have properly experienced life in a Wrangler, and I like it. It's something that I could live with. I don't know that I would. I mean, see again how bouncy it is and the loudness on the highway and all of that stuff. But that aside, everything else about owning this particular version of the Wrangler, especially with the diesel, it just it elevates the entire experience. So yeah, if you're in the market for a Wrangler, please don't ignore the Eco Diesel version. Don't be afraid of the word diesel. It is not bad. Take it for a drive, feel the difference, feel the fact that the engine actually feels appropriate for the size and weight of the vehicle. See how it drives, and I guarantee you'll change your mind and you will want to walk away with that Eco Diesel version. Anyway, so the 2020 Jeep Wrangler Sahara Eco Diesel, I'm not going to say much about the interior only because I know you've watched my Gladiator and this is essentially the same thing. Of course, you're going to see images here now because I'm such a good videographer. So the only difference really between the Gladiator and this Wrangler, especially because it was the Gladiator Mojave, is that it had the contrast stitching and the materials were a little bit, not even upscale. This feels like the same thing. Otherwise, this has pretty much the same. So any Wrangler that you get into, you're going to have the same look in the center stack, the same big beefy knobs and buttons, and all your window things are down here to put your windows up and down. Not because you have to remove the doors, because that means nothing, because the windows go with them. This has the soft top. The Mojave had the hard panels that came out. So this retracts back and then has like a skeleton body frame, so that when you have the roof off, you still have obviously all the support beams to keep the rigidity of the vehicle. So if you choose to off-road with your top off, you will be fine. The car's not going to bend and twist and do all the funny things that you'd think it would if it didn't have a roof on. But otherwise, it is a pretty typical Jeep Wrangler fare. On the seats is Sahara stitching, which is really quite nice, and this brown leather, really nice as well. Good contrast with the blue. I mean, you can see, maybe not only the blue here inside. I always find it funny when my child asks me, Mommy, why can I see the paint inside the car? I'm like, well, it's Jeep, so there's very little, insulation and or sound dampening in here, which is why it's so loud on the road. It also makes it so much easier to take the doors off, right? These doors are so flimsy and really barely connected by anything, so that you can easily pop them off. Again, part of owning a Jeep, which is kind of cool because you can't really take the doors off anything else, so can't really complain about it. I don't have Apple CarPlay in here. This is kind of a simplified version of, again, the Gladiator that I had a couple weeks ago, but it has Sirius XM radio. I've got all of the heated seats, heated steering wheel. I have my own apps here. I've got Nav on this. I can't see Waze on here, but I can still plug my phone in, and then I can take calls through the car, but not with Apple CarPlay. Plenty of room in the back, really good sized trunk. I love the double opening for the trunk. Again, it made a really big difference while we were snowboarding. It was a nice place to chill since we're not allowed to go into the lodge. So Owen would pop himself up in the back and we could have our snacks and hang out in the back of the Wrangler in between runs on the hill. So there's really not much else to say about the interior of a Wrangler. And, you know, I like that it hasn't really changed over the years. It's got the same beefy shifter. I've got a real handbrake down here. And just everything is at hand, big, easy to turn if I'm wearing gloves, and everything, again, is at hand and practical. You know, I can get up in the car, which is nice, even though it has a side rail. I always like that I don't have to look like I'm scaling Mount Everest to get into vehicles, because it happens sometimes. Even over here, the passenger has 2 holy beep bars, if you will, for any of your off-roading experiences. But yeah, no, it's a comfortable interior. As uncomfortable as the ride is, it is a very comfortable interior. So again, I'm not really going to go on at great length about the exterior of this Wrangler. Looking at it, it is a Jeep. You know, the cool thing about the Gladiator was the fact that it had a pickup bed. This is a standard fare Wrangler 4-door. What I do love is this blue color. I think it's really, really nice against the black bumpers and of course against the tan and black interior. But yeah, it stands out. I love the new front end of the Wranglers. You know, you've got your LED headlights. It's a little bit more modern looking, and yet you still have that familiar Jeep front grille. All those lines there that signify that this is indeed a Jeep, just in case you're wondering. But yeah, you've got your big beefy tires. Again, I've got the double opening in the back for the trunk. The glass pops up and I can open up the back swing door if I only want to on the bottom. But all in all, this is typical Jeep. The Wrangler hasn't changed in years, nor should it. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is a look that Jeep owners love and something that people go for. You know, it is very different from other cars on the road. It is rugged, it's manly, it's meant for the off-road. And you know what? It's just as comfortable in the city as it is off-roading, which is also something that I really love about the Wrangler. But this look definitely sets it apart on the road, and I really hope they never change it. So, you know, after living with this Wrangler for as long as I have for the past 3 weeks, I gotta say, I'm pretty sad to give it back. But that's been it for me this time around. I hope you enjoyed the Wrangler review. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, you know, you can always reach me at Miss Miranda L on Twitter or on Instagram, or Miranda Lightstone on Facebook.com, or drop a message below here on the Suburban On Air, and I hope to see you guys back next week. Thanks.